Yeah, there he is. Mediaite's Colby Hall.
Hey,
And
Pete. It's Pete, right? It's a tricky name.
One time when I was at SiriusXM and I'd been opening for Artie Lang for years, he's one of my best friends. If he's walking through the lobby, he's famous. If I was walking through the lobby, a couple people know me. He yells down from the mezzanine, "Hey, Paul!" And everybody just looks. I'm like, it's not Paul. You know who I am. Like,
it's a good bit.
Really good friends. Yeah, it's good when a famous person purposely says the wrong name. I love that. Colby Hall, it is great to see you. You have been particularly prolific of the last, 10 days. A lot of really good stuff over at Mediaite, which is my favorite stop of the day. And I always look to see what you're writing. So I want to go through all of it. So thank you for joining me.
I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that at least one person's reading and I get to wax philosophic about my great writing or not so great writing. We'll let the viewers decide.
It's great. I think everything's great writing because I can't write at all. Someone confronted me recently. I'm almost 50, and I was like, "Who?" He explained who and whom to me. It was really uncomfortable, but true. So you're a great writer, and these are all very popular over at Mediaite. These pieces. I want to just talk about a couple of them that deal with all things Epstein. Starting with last week, where we saw Marjorie Taylor Greene in front of a whole bunch of victims or joining with victims at that press conference. You wrote a piece there titled Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Canary in the MAGA Coal Mine, which is really fascinating and interesting. Go ahead and tell your thesis here of this.
Well, I wouldn't say it's like the conversion of Saul to Paul to go biblical, but I do think of all people, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who really kind of got elected as like true blue MAGA individual and kind of low information and was super disruptive. You see the polish that she's added since she's been in DC. But what's shocking to me is that of all the people that are the biggest, most loyal Trump supporters, she's oddly the most principled. We saw it first with her complaints about the intervention, Israel, Iran, us bombing Iran. She's in America first. And she sort of lost that battle with Tucker Carlson. But the fact that she is really sticking to her guns and doing, I think, you can't argue that it's undebatable that she's sort of helping and promoting with Ro Khanna these Epstein victims, right? So she helped organize and spoke truth to power. While, all the Republicans, all they do is sort of fall in line and support Trump. Trump wants this story to go away. She's one of these things that's not like the other. And, canary in a coal mine it was a clever headline metaphor, and I don't really think that Trump is going to lose MAGA supporting base, but I do think it reveals a deeper fracture in what's maybe a more fragile MAGA coalition. There's a lot of QAnon adjacent, QAnon believing MAGA guys who are suddenly seeing Trump as a deep state cover-up guy. And when he's saying this, there's no story here, like these are not the drones you're looking for or the clones you're looking for, she's not buying it. And so there was this moment on Fox News where they cut to her live and she started openly saying, like, the truth lies with the DOJ. She was not saying Trump DOJ, but she was criticizing the Trump administration. And what did Dana Perino do? She cut right away from it because they couldn't bear to see something critical of the Trump administration on Fox News for fear of angering, the guy that they don't want to anger. So I think, as goes Marjorie Taylor Greene, so goes some of her base. And that could, that's dangerous for President Trump.
There's always this question with politicians of any stripe, much less media types, how much they're using a victim of anything, a victim of any crime. In this case, we're talking about the Epstein victims. And there's obviously a real question to me when it comes to domestic abuse or domestic violence, sexual violence. I'm not saying it's partisan, but I think Democrats have a record of the Violence Against Women Act, and they're supporting women voting. And I'm not going to call them all feminists or anything, but in terms of victims of abuse, you would think it's more of a Democratic thing to some extent. And obviously, the MAGA movement has supported Donald Trump, who's a notorious, horrible man to women in all of the ways, and a lot of people work for him are as well. It's like part of how you get in. But in this case, when it comes to the Epstein victims, I still feel like you knew they didn't actually care about the victims, Colby. They were always just kind of using them, but now they're attacking them in some cases. And, nothing could be less surprising, but maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other women who have been victims of sexual violence are being consistent when it comes to victims of sexual violence. And they weren't necessarily using the Epstein victims because they've made a flip here, certainly. So it would seem that would be a consistent principle that you might be pointing to.
That's a great point. And I will say, I agree with you. I think the exploitation of victims, whether it's sexual abuse or murder victims, is a very deeply cynical, sort of horrible thing that politicians do. And I think you can fairly argue happens more on the right under like a very kind of sloganeering, sort of very basic, zero nuance point of view. I think in this instance, though, getting back to the Epstein victims, they're taking ownership in this, and they're part of that. And I think Ro Khanna deserves just as much, celebration for this as Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's just weird that she's the one that's like leading the charge in a story that is so politically damaging to Trump. And the more they want it to go away, the bigger it gets. And I don't think the story is going away anytime soon.
Well, I wonder about that. That's what I want to ask you next. And how closely do you follow the kind of QAnon, dark MAGA media? They're so influential. They've got millions of people watching and viewing them. Tucker Carlson, by the way, is like I think number one. Is he number one in like podcasts or YouTuber or whatever that in that world?
I don't think he's a true believer. I think he's just leveraging that because he knows that there's an audience there. I think he's kind of nihilistic. I don't follow it that closely. I follow it more closely. To me, it seems like it kind of has abated as a this idea that Trump is Q and all that stuff. It just seemed so moronic, and so I don't pay that a close attention.
But given that, fine. To the question you said, or my question is, you said this isn't going away anytime soon. Play that out, and why do you think that?
Well, I think a few things. I think there's more to the story, and I don't know what the end result is. I don't think it's nearly as bad as anyone would hope if you're anti-Trump, but I do think there's enough adjacency there that it paints him as a terrible person, elitist who was aware of bad things and probably did nothing. I think the larger issue is that, there's a reason why Bigfoot still exists as a conspiracy, is that you can never find him, right? Like that's the sort of, you can't prove a negative, right? Like, you couldn't prove that Saddam Hussein had no WMD because that's the burden of proof. That's a logical fallacy. And so these conspiracy theories who ginned up, and was ginned up largely by Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, and a lot of Trump surrogates, they've created a monster. And now that they're in power and are saying, oh, the story's closed, there's no there, it doesn't add up, but also conspiracy theorists are going to conspiracy theory, right? Like they don't take no for an answer, and they will only believe that there's part of a cover-up. And all the evidence suggests that there is. Like, Andrew Bates had this great moment that I wrote about. He's the former deputy spokes for Biden who kind of became their attack dog.
Yeah, this is a really good piece. I read this one. This guy, Andrew Bates, who was former President Joe Biden's, what was he?
He was like deputy spokes or deputy communications director, and he kind of played the role under Biden to push back at like Fox News narratives. And he was asked to testify about Biden's cognitive decline, which I think that was clear decline, but that's a whole nother story. We're looking in the rearview mirror. As he enters the elevator, I think it was Washington Examiner or Newsmax reporter was like, "What did you know? Did he even blah, blah, blah?" And it was very dramatic. As the elevator closed out, he's like, "I'd like to know why Ghislaine Maxwell is in a minimum security prison." And it was precisely the right answer, because it was like a playbook for Democrats. Like the Democrats just keep losing the narrative battle because they don't push back. They're not playing by the same lack of decorum, bad rules that Trump is. I mean, Newsom's doing it right now. It's sort of this ironically detached performative art, which was good at first and I think will run itself out. But, there's like Trump knows to always be on attack. So if you're going to get a tough question, pivot. And like, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in a minimum? What is going on there? She met with Todd Blanche, Trump's former defense attorney, which again is a detail that's lost, who's now serving as his deputy AJ, but also kind of as Trump's personal attorney. the one witness in this terrible crime or series of crimes has suddenly got a better deal. Like, what is going on there? So
we're also good to mention this thing that's kind of gone under the radar, in my opinion, at least, this guy, James O'Keefe, this son of a bitch, right-wing activist, hidden camera guy who's destroyed a lot of lives without a context, and sometimes legitimately, probably, to give him some credit. But he did this hidden camera trick to a Department of Justice official who, on camera, not knowing it, but claimed that Trump's Justice Department cut a deal to keep Ghislaine Maxwell quiet. He says it. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. But you did good to mention that. What do you want to say? How is that going over in MAGA or in general?
Well, so we're very careful with James O'Keefe stuff because I know him. He's done some interesting things. He's not a reliable arbiter, right? What's fascinating, and I think most newsworthy about this, isn't just that some random dude at the DOJ was saying this, because you don't really know context. Was he just a guy that was talking shit? I mean, I think that happens a lot. The larger story is that James O'Keefe, who did a lot of sting operations and hidden camera stuff to like pin Democrats down and to try to embarrass media members and all this stuff, he's now going after Trump officials for Epstein stuff. So we talk about, Marjorie Taylor Greene being a canary in the MAGA coal mine, so too is he. And, we need one more to see a trend. Like 3 is the magic number. But this is evidence to the idea that there are people that aren't buying the Trump administration Epstein spin. And that's kind of answers the question you asked earlier, like, how does this play out? This is why I think, QAnon aside, this is why I think this story's got legs, because a lot of these conspiracy theorists, they're against the deep state. And that for the deep state has always been sort of like inside beltway kind of pro-Democrat lifers. Well, guess what? Trump is this, again, I said it before, in his second term, he's no longer a disruptor. He's not a flouter of decorum. He is part of the system. He has remade the establishment in his crazy entertainment, bizarre, memified way that normalizes a lot of crazy authoritarianism, but also opens him up for criticism by the fringe. And the fringe, as it turns out, are powerful. Even if they're crazy, they open the Overton window. They drive the narrative in a way that, it's Frankenstein, right? Like you create a monster and suddenly the monster turns around and attacks the person that created it himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They fan the flames of this all the way up and now they turn around. Here's evidence of that. Here is a piece that you wrote over at Mediaite. Fox News is trying and failing to bury the Epstein scandal. Let me just read from it, Colby, for a minute. This is you. I'm going to read you writing, and you're just going to sit there and watch me reading your writing. The Jeffrey Epstein story is everywhere. Capitol Hill hearings, newly unsealed documents, lurid details splashed across front pages, and endless dissection on cable news. It's one of those rare scandals with genuine bipartisan reach. Democrats and Republicans alike want answers, and the public is riveted. Unless, that is, you're watching Fox News. According to a transcript search database search over the past 3 weeks, Fox mentioned Epstein just 429 times. CNN clocked 3,668. MSNBC, 5,624. For a scandal this dominant, Colby writes, the disparity isn't just surprising, it's damning. The most watched cable news network in America is barely acknowledging one of the most talked about stories in the country. Whew. That's a big deal. That matters.
It's great writing. And I have to admit that my ghostwriter, I was bringing up my dog to give him credit.
You missed it? You tried to be the dog ran away and you failed?
I did. It's like, let's recut. Let's do it again.
Get that dog over here.
Well, so the story, I thank you for reading that. And it came out well. And that story did really well, actually. I think it got a Drudge link. Anyway, the story behind that was that it started with the terrible jobs report last week, in which 22,000 jobs, a revision of June numbers that were negative 12,000. And, we heard throughout 2024 how bad the economy was, inflation, blah, blah, blah. That's why Trump got elected. Well, guess what? Those numbers are exactly the same. And if a jobs report came out in August under, say, the Biden administration, you wouldn't hear the end of it on Fox News. So I wrote this piece that, I think the title was like, Trump has stopped criticizing Fox News. Guess why? And the whole point was they're just bearing negative narratives, whether it's the economy, whether it's sort of filleting Putin with a red carpet while Ukraine still is fired. And then, so then on Monday, like I sat on it, and then on Monday, this tranche of Epstein files came out, and I noticed, like, well, how is Fox News covering this? So Snapstream is a video service that is like a database of transcripts, and you can just search terms based on, it's not precise, but it gives you a clear indication. And I was shocked that Fox News, this massive story, had only mentioned over the last 3 weeks 429 times, whereas that's like 10%, less than 10% of what the other networks were. And so, and where it gets mentioned is like Bret Baier, Howie Kurtz, the Fox News, the most watched primetime network right now in all of America, including broadcast, is Fox News primetime. It gets more viewers than CBS, ABC, and NBC, which is stunning. And all those channels, Lauren Grimm, Jesse Waters, Sean Hannity, Greg Gutfeld, guess what they're not talking about? They're not talking about anything that they fear will anger their very pro-Trump audience. And so it drives me crazy. And it says a lot about how divided we are as a nation.
The thing that's really interesting is you're hearing constantly. I was on CNN on panel, and whoever the Trump
you were great with Abby, right?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was the time before that. It doesn't matter. This guy was saying, "How come you guys never talked about it when Biden was president? If Trump was in the Epstein files, how come Biden didn't release it? All that." And I went back in my archives, Colby, and people were also calling me out on social media, of course. And I said, "Wait a second. I definitely have been talking about Epstein since the story was broken by the investigative reporter journalist who broke it, Julie K. Brown."
Right.
I mean, Julie Brown at the Miami Herald was
she's ground center of this whole thing. She was like,
she's the one who broke the story. But I look back at my email, my archives. I talked to her about Jeffrey Epstein in 2018, and then again in 2019.
Wow.
And you know how I found her? Another very popular liberal, not founder. I mean, everybody found it. That story was in the Miami Herald. It was a big story. But liberals were particularly attracted to that story because liberals are more likely to talk about women who are abuse victims in general, regardless of whether or not the abuser was a rich Democrat or President Clinton or anybody else. Like, we were talking about it. We thought that was a horrible story, and partly because the labor secretary at the time was the prosecutor who gave him the sweetheart deal. Alex, what's his name?
Alex Acosta.
Acosta. So anyway, we have been talking about it since the story broke. We never stopped talking about it. They're the ones who really brought it into kind of the conspiracy world and made it seem like Epstein, his friends and abusers were all liberal, elite Hollywood Democrats, as opposed to, I don't know, just men.
just assholes, just like terrible, gross people. And
shitty men.
So one of the things that came up, like this crazy idea that that's not Trump's signature. Like, what? Like, it's so gaslighty. And I remember someone on social media hit me up and was like, well, how come you're not covering Bill Clinton's letter in that birthday book? I'm like, well, he's not the president, A, but also, I don't care. I think this transcends politics. If you are a man in power who had this weird predilection for younger women and, maybe they didn't know if they were 14, 15, 16, 17, I don't care. You should be held to account, whether you're Bill Richardson, Bill Clinton, or you're part of a cover-up like Alex Acosta. I mean, is it Trump? Like, you do bad things, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And, and I think that's where this is where the sort of horseshoe story, what I sort of said in the lead of that story, like, this is one that, like, I think reasonable Democrats and Republicans can all get along. If you did bad shit, then you should pay the price.
Also, like even if we weren't consistent on our principles around sexual abuse, even if we weren't, we still wouldn't care about Bill Clinton because
he's done.
He's done. He can't hurt us. Like, if Bill Clinton, it doesn't matter. It's
right.
Only people protecting them and the actual abusers themselves. Let me move on though quickly to one more thing, because you got a couple pieces up about the job numbers which came out last week and the coverage of them. It's hard to paint a rosy picture of these job numbers, but administration officials are going to try to do it, and right-wing media is going to try to do it. But you got a couple of pieces about this. What do you want to say about the economy and the media's coverage of the August job numbers and the revised job numbers from months prior? Because apparently like 1 million jobs have been lost over this certain time period.
So I'm not a financial expert. I have a few friends who work in the financial sector. I actually sort of kind of was critical of the media's initial reaction of like empty shelves in May. And as it turns out, that didn't come true. And perhaps we shouldn't preemptively sort of wish cast bad things to happen.
I have a caveat on that. Everybody said that there were going to be empty shelves, and we're concerned about that. And a lot of that was because, and then Trump caved.
Right. Well, he delayed. Right. He delayed. And so the whole taco meme. But guess what? The delays are over. They're now in effect. And people who are smarter than I, who know this better, believe that sort of the Sturm und Drang, the ominous clouds, the gloom and doom, will actually sort of reveal itself in October, November, right in time for the holidays. And so I made this kind of, it's kind of a depressing point, but, and it kind of ties into this other thing that I wrote. Trump, there's a ton of reasons to expect Trump to have a really terrible fourth quarter. And a lot of it is economic. A lot of it is inflation is flat or going up. The prices, you want to know why Mom Donnie's a hot ticket in New York? Because he's the one guy that's saying this city can't only be for the super wealthy, right? Yeah. I think that, and Trump is, super corrupt, making a ton of money off of his crypto and meme NFT bullshit. But I do think that, with foreign policy, Israel is still burning. Ukraine, he looks like a loser compared to Putin with Ukraine. I think the economy is going to go bad. And then there's this Epstein scandal that just keeps getting worse. And then the point that I make is that the fourth quarter should be terrible for Trump, but I'm not sure that the media landscape is such that it will really matter, because Fox is such a huge and influential, powerful force for a lesser informed viewer that he just is this narrative master. And I hope it's not true. I think that it shouldn't be true, but there's never been a more important time for responsible media to find its voice. And because you see a lot of these corporate media outlets are really cowed, or, there's this chilling effect from, an FCC, Brendan Carr, who's like threatening lawsuits against, we don't like your coverage, you're anti-Trump. Like, well, no, that's not how it's supposed to work. And so they need to show some courage and bravery and say like, nope, shit's going really south under Trump. And I don't care if you're going to sue us. There is the First Amendment, and we're going to speak truth to power regardless.
It'll be interesting to see what the federal government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics does to either the statistics, which you can't fudge.
Right.
It's just reporting in surveys, or they just don't report it at all. Like when COVID, they just decided to not, report certain things. But I think this is very similar to COVID.
You're right.
You can't deny it. You can't deny that prices are going up on almost everything. If they do, I don't know where everything is right now, but certainly things haven't gotten better. Nothing's gotten better. Very little's gotten cheaper.
No.
And so
never go down, they go up and they stay there. And you want to talk about like the sort of the growth, the wealth disparity's never been bigger, because we've convinced ourselves through, government is bad, regulation is bad. Well, guess what? You take away all that regulation, prices can grow, the super rich get super richer, and poor saps like us are left holding the bag. And it's really, again, returning callback, Marjorie Taylor Greene posted a TikTok video of a woman in tears over the price of gas and groceries. I live on a street that there's lots of horns all the time, and it's very annoying. She posted a video of like someone under such economic stress that she was in tears. I was like, Marjorie Taylor Greene is, that's not the narrative and that's not the politics that Trump wants.
Right.
And how is she, again, posting this shit that makes this administration look terrible, but it's getting worse before it gets better. And I don't know how it's going to work out. I hope the media sort of finds their onions to speak truth to power.
Yeah. Especially the financial media. Finally, the excerpt came out of Kamala Harris's new book in the Atlantic magazine. Everybody's talking about it. You have a piece up at Mediaite titled "Morning Joe Stunned into Silence After Reading Kamala Harris Excerpt Blaming Biden's Ego." By the way, did you see yesterday or hear about yesterday on Morning Joe when Princeton professor Eddie Glaude was on arguing with Joe about the whole
I didn't.
crime and police thing? God, it was just it was so cringe, Colby. It was
Well, because Joe is really, since he tripped to Mar-a-Lago, he has been much more muted in his criticism of Trump. I like Eddie Glaude. He said some dumb things before. Sometimes words fail. Sometimes you can't, like, you say something on cable news, but what was the essence of that fight?
It was an argument, the classical argument about more police equals less crime, and not thinking about the racial component, right, and how white people have a really hard time understanding anything other than black people bad. And
well, so, to that point, Rudy Giuliani gets all the credit for cleaning up New York in the 90s. But if you really talk to someone who knows, it was David Dinkins who added a ton of cops, and he put a ton of cops of color on the staff. And so then they moved up the ranks. And so they were like sergeants, captains, leaders who who treated kids of color with a little bit more understanding and nuance and developed more community policing. Dinkins gets no credit. But it gets to that point. Like, it is way more complicated. Giuliani was an asshole.
I didn't know that about Dinkins, but I was there. I lived in New York when Giuliani was mayor. Were you there on 9/11?
I was, yeah. I moved to New York in the Dinkins era in 91. And honestly, like, the reason New York turned around had so much to do with, like, economic boom as anything else. It wasn't just getting rid of squeegee guys.
I just remember post 9/11 in the weeks after when Rudy was being feted, which is such bullshit. I hate when leaders get credit for for doing what they were supposed to do.
Well, he was a calming presence. I will give that. Like, he
he can go fuck himself. But you're a better man than me. But you know why? Because after the terrorist attack of '93,
right?
They then on the World Trade Center, they then put Rudy, I believe, put the counterterrorism center headquarters in the target of the last terrorist attack. So that was the dumbest thing of all time. And why would you ever put the counterterrorism control center in anywhere near a target? It should be in a fucking field somewhere. And two, to the point of race and police and Eddie Glaude in that conversation, everybody brown and black in New York City hated Rudy Giuliani before 9/11 because he was such a piece of shit, racist.
Right. By the way, I want to make clear the record, like, his character, he's revealed himself. Like, I think if he was a calming presence, that was the outlier in his character. So I don't want to be a revisionist, like, sort of Giuliani defender. He's a bad guy, and has proven to be a bad guy. For a brief 2-week moment, he was a calming influence. And I lived on 12th Street, Lower Manhattan, so it was close to home. I just started working at Pop-Up Video on the day that happened. And,
wow. Well, we're talking a day away from the anniversary of 9/11. It would be 24 years, I guess. Is this the 24th year anniversary?
Yeah, good math.
I can't believe, and I didn't expect to talk to you about this, but the fact that you and I lived in New York and lived through it, and you lived even closer than I did. I lived in the Upper West Side, but I don't know what to say about it 24 years later, Colby. But
I think it was.
I'll say this. When you find out that someone was there, I do think it's similar to finding out that someone else was in combat in a certain war zone or combat zone or lived through a certain thing. There's a weird kind of solidarity of, hey, you were there, you remember, you're still probably dealing with remnants of it some way, somehow, but you're still living in New York. So
yeah, I hate the way that it was co-opted. And I hate the way that it has really limited. It was a terrible tragedy. You can't sum it up. I just hate the way that it was used. Someone wrote that it was a local crime act, not an act of war, which is kind of overstating things. But the way that it was used to sort of invade our personal lives and take away a lot of liberties that were then sort of used as cudgels against us, is I think has a more lasting effect than the 3,000 terrible tragic lives that were lost.
Yeah, no, I think not only that, but my bigger beef was, of course, the invasion of Iraq and using 9/11 as a reason for that.
Yeah, terrible. Terrible.
A generation of veterans' lives being destroyed, not to mention innocent Iraqis. But, well, I mean, try hard to get back to Kamala Harris's book. And
sure, the big book came out today, and in the news there was that she said that, you know, in hindsight, that, you know, she maybe showed too much loyalty and grace to Biden, but maybe, you know, what was at stake was too big for that Jill and Joe Biden's ego kind of got in the way, and they showed some recklessness. And I think actually it was Jonathan Lemire on Morning Joe that said it best, and he's a neighbor, he's a friend. He was like, look, you cannot discount the level of animus and anger within the Democratic Party to Joe Biden for running for re-election. And, you know, I think even though she said on Colbert that politics is broken and she's going to sit out for a while, her future is in the public sphere, and she needs to create some space between being a loyal, you know, sort of hype man deputy to Biden and find some space within the Democratic Party that says, you know what, in hindsight, that was wrong. What's interesting is that the reaction, like on Fox and Friends, was like, oh, she's a backstabber. And then on Morning Joe, they showed way more fealty to Biden than they did to her in a way that was like Shakespearean levels of cognitive dissonance. It was like they were stunned because they're all super duper close to Biden, and they're not going to sit there and let her talk shit on their boy, even if, you know, their boy kind of messed up.
Kinda. Yeah, that's exactly, you framed that perfectly in the piece and right now. And it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, frankly, that there's a husband and wife that co-anchor the show and the way that they do it and the dynamic. I have a lot of problems in Joe and Mika, and it sucks because I like that format.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it's a good format. It's a good show, but they cry wolfed way too long, and now like they're going to Mar-a-Lago. I think forever rendered that they lost a ton of credibility, and it just shows that it's an access medium, and that they want access.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I shouldn't have jumped on you.
No, you're good. You're good.
The lack of journalistic ethical integrity of, like, every day there should be a banner that says these two people are married.
Well, I wonder how much longer they're going to be on air. I wrote a piece about how much time they'd taken off in the early part of the summer.
I saw that piece,
and it was because I just did the math, and like they were never on, and it shows like how at MSNBC talent has all the juice. I later learned that their plans to go away in August were ruined by my column because, like, you know, the powers that be were like, wait, how much have they missed? And so I feel bad because I don't want to ruin anyone's vacation, but come on, they're making. I know.
I don't feel bad about that at all because I've done what they do for a living, live TV, live radio for years. And it's everything I ever did was harder than what they do.
Right.
Such a cushy gig. It's such an easy gig. And even if it was equal, the fact that they get so much time off and make so much money.
It's absurd.
There's so many people that are on television and quote news that act like they deserve the money they get, and nobody does. They just don't. No, they just don't.
Well, I think you and I excluded. I think you and I, if we were to have our shows, we would totally deserve 9 figures, 8 figures.
Except after we did a great show, I'd be the only one promoting it because you're too modest.
Well, I would also what to bring in this guy?
Oh, I thought he got away again. Oh my gosh,
he's my muse.
Akbar.
This is Frank.
Hey, Frank.
He's a good dude.
Is that a French bulldog?
It is. It's a little on the nose. It's a little cliche. I got him off of Craigslist for cheap.
How long?
Yes, I did. I swear.
How old is that dog? How long have you had it?
2 years. I realized my youngest was about to go to college, and I didn't know what my oldest was going to do. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to deal with I can't live alone. So I got a dog to deal with my post-dad time. But then my oldest graduated from college and is now living with me full time. So I've got a theoretical backup dog walker who never walks the dog. But because I'm walking him all the time. He's nature's Prozac. Dogs are good.
Nature's Prozac. I love that. I love it so much for you. And the live chat just lit up when Frank joined us. So I think next time we talk, Frank
Next time you're going to text me, hey, is Frank free? We
is
don't need you.
available to weigh in on Kamala's book.
He's got some things.
I heard, this is, I know you wanted to keep this private. You said just, I don't want to talk about it, but Frank, your dog, is QAnon.
I mean, dude, he's got
dog. I'm not judging, but
what? No, stop. No.
Got some weird theories, that one.
It's a good bit. By the way, did you notice my Peabody Award? I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. I will match your Peabody, which is a far lesser talent. I was a fluff with the Colby Report.
When we have our own show, we're gonna wear them like with a big dookie chain, like Flava Flav. The Peabody Bro. Wow, that's impressive.
That would be Syracuse Lacrosse Camp MVP.
Wow.
1988.
I can't compete with that.
Sorry, buddy. I think I just finished you. I think I just destroyed you. And a piece of the original Colbert Report set.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
This is when my career's over and I'm
straight. I would like to see a return to the Colbert Report, because I think that was the single greatest political TV show.
Never be done again. It's too late for it, but I think. I don't
know. I mean, remember the last episode that Colbert became immortal, like Santa Claus. And that was
imagine if he came back, like his next thing was to go back to that character.
That's what I'm saying. Like, wouldn't that be like, and like some sort of tweak for him?
I think that was the hardest thing that anyone's done. Talking about an easy job. I was talking about cable news. I think that role and that job, playing that character every night for 9 years, was probably one of the most impressive and one of the most challenging things. And going from that to hosting the show he has hosted has got to be a cakewalk. So when I'm down and I kind of am depressed, my go-to is there's a great clip from the Colbert Report where he's talking about Munch Makuchi, these like letters from Muslim readers that are clearly sort of, huge ass and whatever. And what's great about it is Colbert never breaks. He can't get through the read, and he just is laughing. And it's just, he's such a sweet dude. And like when a great comedic mind can't not break, it's like Harvey Korman on the Carol Burnett show. Like when someone can't break or can't keep straight, it just makes it funnier. So that's anyone watching, Google Colbert Report. Audio, but I might grab it and tag it if it does at the end of this conversation, which is now. And I took you over. I really appreciate your time. I'm happy. This is fun. I never dull moment with you, Pete. I'm always here for you, bro. Thanks for watching live, everybody. Go support and read everything Colby's writing at Mediaite. And that is it for us today. I will talk to you later. I'm ending it.